Today is Tuesday, December 8th, 2020. Time is 6:16 p.m. Establishment of a quorum will be Commissioner Diaz, Commissioner Butler, Commissioner Barnes. Is Commissioner Santana still on there?
Yes, sir.
Oh, there you are. And Commissioner Avalos, you still on here?
Yes, sir.
All right, we have a full quorum. Item number 3, public comment must notify the board to speak on certain agenda items. 5 minutes, public can comment by calling 915-213-3008. That's 915-213-3008. The PIN code for this meeting is 523-381-787 #. That's 523-381-787 #. Consent agenda. Discuss and approve the minutes of the regular meeting held November 17, 2020. And discuss an action on financial report by Mariana Navarrete. Do I have a motion for both of those, commissioners?
Motion.
Second.
Motion by Diaz, seconded by who?
Santana.
Commissioner Diaz,
Aye.
Commissioner Butler,
Aye.
Commissioner Santana,
Aye.
Commissioner Barnes,
Aye.
and Commissioner Avalos.
Aye.
Motion carries. Regular agenda, discussing communications report by Elva Ramos. I believe I saw her here.
Yes, sir. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes,
Yes.
ma'am.
Lost your
Yes.
picture, but yeah, we can hear you.
Hi, hello, good evening. I'll be giving the report for the month of November. I was asked for the calls, the total number of calls, why it didn't match with the fire department's report. They told me, hey, you know what, you're showing on your end that there's 87 reports, for instance, a total of number of calls, but we went to more. So I just wanted to clarify that the number of calls that you see for each slot, such as alarm, assistant calls, so on and so forth, it's for that district. Those are the number of calls that were received for the district. It doesn't mean that Clint only responded to 87 calls, for example. That's one of the things that I did want to clarify. It's within the district how many calls were received for that month. So for Clint, 87 calls were received. For Fabens, 153, Montana Vista, 125, San Elizario, 168, Socorro, 260, and West Valley, 150. I also included the COVID calls, the chart. Clint had 12 confirmed calls, Fabens, 33, Montana Vista, 27, San Elizario, 50, Socorro with the highest of 82, and West Valley with 26. For fire marshal inspections, there were a total of 27. Permits paid for and issued, 7. For the no response not available, Clint had a total of 28 no response and 5 not available. Fabens, 19 no response and 7 not available. Montana Vista, they responded to all calls. San Elizario, 27 no response and 1 not available. Socorro, 14 no response, 4 not available, and West Valley also responded to all calls. So there was a total of 88 no response and 17 not available. Are there any questions?
No, ma'am.
None whatsoever.
Thank you.
Thank you for the report.
Thank you.
Item number 6 was for informational purposes only. Item number 7, discussion on report by Chief Esparza. Commissioners, since it was a short meeting, I have a very short little bullet points there, things that I wanted to go over with you all. Number 1 is COVID testing. We are ongoing COVID testing. As a matter of fact, Thursday they will be opening up the 3rd testing center, the Socorro Fire Station. The TDEMs requested that we open a 3rd one. as they feel that Socorro is now the hotspot happening right now. So they will be setting up Thursday, Monday through Friday testing center there, as well as here and in the west side. Numbers are beginning to drop, but they're getting ready for after this holiday for the spike that they feel is going to come. So we are going to assist them with it. They are handling all that. All we're providing is the facility.
So Chief,
go ahead.
real quick, we're doing testing at West Valley and Central Monday through Friday?
We're doing testing as far as ESD2 is concerned, we're doing
Yep.
testing at West Valley at the district office and now at Socorro starting on Thursday,
Okay, but it's 5 days a week.
5 days a week.
Okay.
They're going to look and see how this is going to pan out, how this is going to work. If one of the centers is, I'm trying to get one out in Montana Vista. If one of these centers is not busy, they'll probably move one of them up there to Montana Vista.
Okay. And it's from 9 to 5, correct?
9 to 4.
9 to 4.
9 to 4.
Okay, got it. Thank you, sir.
Chief, and
Second,
just to confirm, this is a state testing site, right?
that is correct. Well, it's being paid by the state. It's a contract company.
Right.
Item number 2, the new pumper was sent to West Valley. There was a damage made to it while getting it ready. It is currently in the shop getting repaired. It's going to run us right under $2,000 from what I've been told already for all the repairs to paint the damage on it. And it should be out in service hopefully next week.
What happened to it?
Well, we tilted the cab and they had put a strap on the handles. They attached the cab to the back of the bed. And when we tilted the cab, they forgot to take the strap off and it yanked the handles off.
Oh.
So, any other questions on that one?
No, sir.
This is something that's practiced and has been done before, correct, Chief? I mean,
Yeah, this is just one of those that they forgot to remove the strap from one side. They did take the one off of it. And I was there present when that happened. We were about to go over the items that go wrong with these trucks so they could keep an eye on it. They did remove the one side, but they forgot to take the other side off. So they yanked both handles off the driver's side. So it's in the shop getting repaired.
okay.
Item number 3, CARES funding. On Monday, Commissioners Court approved the CARES funding for the enforcement of the fire marshal side. Wally, correct me if I'm wrong, they are reviewing the reimbursement for the rest of the funding for the firefighters and the rest of the time for the fire marshals that we spend out trying to do this COVID, not only enforcement, but responding to calls and also setting up meetings that we're having for COVID. Because from what we were told by county legal is all that is reimbursable to us. So we did submit the forecasted expenditures from March 2nd to now for all the firefighters responding to COVID calls. And if approved by county commissioners, they should be cutting us a check for, I don't know if the total amount or just a half or a quarter, whatever the case may be. And then with that, we can go ahead and turn around and reimburse our volunteers afterwards. Wally?
Yeah, so I had several meetings with attorneys this afternoon, and so we would like to, Roger, I'd like to reach out to you in the morning and just discuss some of the details we'll be needing. They are going to place it back on the agenda for Monday because the contract as written was broad enough to do all of that, except the amount that was specified in the contract only covered the code enforcement portion. And so I'm going to follow up with Roger in the morning and let him know what specifically we'll need to do, and then what that maximum amount will be up to. So we're continuing to work on that and plan on having it on the agenda on Monday.
Once that, Commissioners, once that agreement is placed, you all have already approved for that. Once Commissioner Santana signs that new agreement, we receive the funding. We make sure that we allot the funding for this to happen. Then the board can, at the next meeting, take action to do whatever it pleases with that funding. We have to add it to the budget because they're reimbursing us for whatever salaries and everything else that came off of that. And then you can do whatever it needs to be done. And, you know, that was the suggestion from both county legal, and our legal was also involved in the meeting. So you're okay with that, Ken, for them to add that to that contract?
I am, because that's one of the questions that I had, is it was only for 25,000 total. And that's what Ryan reemphasized with us, Ryan, the attorney for the county. And so I'm glad to see that they're going to pick it up.
I have a question, Chief, really quick. This grant, are we going back to cover any salaries for fiscal year 2020? I know that there's some flexibility with these COVID funds, and the idea is to use them before December. So
We
you think that's
will
going to
be,
impact the ongoing audit?
we will be receiving that because they will be reimbursing hopefully till March 2nd. I think that's when this took over.
So it is allowable for March for expenditures that are COVID related, and we are required to have documentation that it's COVID related calls, and it will go back to March 1st. The maximum amount, we just need to discuss the maximum amount that's going to be set. I know the district had requested a maximum of 160,000 for its purpose on what it wanted to do with possibility paying that stipend to the volunteers who became infected with COVID-19. So we just need to zero in on that dollar amount, and that's it. But again, the documentation that'll be required, and I'll say when OIG does the audit, we'll have to just be able to validate that the service calls did have a COVID-related matter, or that other activities conducted within the district from March forward, we've got documentation for COVID-related matters.
So even on this, commissioners, the time that Ken has spent reviewing these contracts, it's a COVID relatable reimbursement. The county attorneys also said that all the time that I've spent having all the meetings, assisting with providing all these testing sites, all the time that my staff has been doing this, all of it is reimbursable via the CARES funding. So that's why we submitted for all this, and then it's up to you all to decide what you want to do with this funding afterwards.
See, something else that I'm seeing, and I don't mean to add complexity to it, but I'm seeing that you're talking about amending the budget, but these expenditures, they were mostly incurred in the previous fiscal year. So are you thinking of going back and amending the last year's budget? Because to me, I mean, it sounds like a big portion of it corresponds to fiscal year 20 that already.
Well, it depends, Theo, really on how much they're willing to reimburse from that amount from March 2nd to now, because it might turn out that 160,000 will be from October 1st to now. You know what I mean? If that's all the county wishes to reimburse.
Right.
So we might not have to go that far back.
Yeah, so to that extent, for the amount that the county agrees to do the maximum reimbursable to, is if you have eligible COVID-related costs from October forward, October through December 30, then you would just treat it as a true reimbursement to expenses, and then you've got the budget available to do expense transfers to the eligible categories to make any subsequent disbursement that the board so sees to be fit.
I'll get with you tomorrow, Theo, after I have a discussion with Wally here to see how we're going to do this and what the dollar amount will be.
Sure, sounds good. Yeah, I mean, I don't mean to make it more complicated. I just want to make sure that if it impacts the audit 2020, that we don't leave it out.
Okay, sounds good. And well, lastly, as the new fleet, I just spoke to our vendor. Our fleet is scheduled to go online this week. There is an agenda item for me to be allowed and my purchasing staff to purchase all the rest of the equipment that goes with these vehicles. We had not done it until we got confirmation. I was told that all 29 vehicles that are being purchased are scheduled to be built next week. So we should receive them here the second, maybe third week of January. So we need to get all this going according to our vendors here locally. For them to get all this going, it'll be about the same amount of time for them to receive all the equipment and get them going. Any other questions, commissioners?
All the new vehicles are going to be delivered by then? They're bringing them in, or are we having to pick them up?
No, they're going to be bringing them in. They are a part of the contract. It was delivered to our site.
Perfect. That's all I have.
Item number 7 was for informational purposes. And I'm sorry, I wanted to add one more thing. I just totally forgot. Commissioner Villa, Commissioner Barnes, and Jackie Butler also got reappointed last November 2nd, if I'm not mistaken, to a 2-year term till 2022. So checked on that this morning and they're good to go. All right. Go ahead, Ms. Butler.
I wanted to ask how the COVID situation is in the fire departments, because I know that was becoming an issue. So has that stabilized? Have you seen that?
Stabilized a little bit. We're still having trouble getting on the volunteer side for them to tell us how many. We do have right now one firefighter out on testing protocols. He felt sick, so as soon as he gets his results, either he comes back or he'll be quarantined. He did receive a letter from his doctor of quarantine. However, if he tests negative, he'll be here the next couple of days. So a lot of our employees are going to their own doctors. I don't know why, because we get the free testing. But nonetheless, we're still trying to receive the testing kits from TDEMS. I know that our request has been reviewed and it's being sent up the chain. They don't think that we are going to get some, but they're going to look into it to see how that's going to work. All right. Anything else?
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you. Item number 8, discuss an action on expenditures exceeding $2,000. Alamo Auto Supply for $2,213 with 83 cents. Lower Valley Water District for $2,392 with 81 cents. And Southwestern Mills for $2,722 with 40 cents. Commissioners, Alamo Auto Supply, $2,213 was a repair to one of the trucks at West Valley. They requested the lights be repaired and upgraded on one of the tankers, and that was the upgraded cost to repair these lights. Lower Valley Water District, the $2,392.81 was the cost for the initial installation of the water line. It was non-existent at the Clint station in Las Colonias, which it had no water. So we are in the process of getting it watered now that we're building a new one. And then Southwestern Mill, a couple of weeks ago, Mario went out there looking for all the supplies that we're using. We were running really low on toiletries for all our stations, and what he purchased what he found so that we can stock up, because everybody was again going into a toilet paper frenzy. So those are the ones that we needed to stock up because we didn't have a good enough supply. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Second.
Commissioner Diaz,
Aye.
Commissioner Butler,
Aye.
Commissioner Santana,
Aye.
Commissioner Barnes,
Aye.
and Commissioner Avalos.
Aye.
Motion carries. Item number 9, postponed on November 17, 2020 by Treasurer Rick Avalos, discussion on action on West Valley's Fire Department service contract. Money initial payment for the fiscal year 2020-2021. Commissioners, I did speak to Chief Adler in regards to him being out of money, and he does have $69,000. And I don't know, I'm not sure if he's going to call in. He did text me, he is watching. He does have $69,000 on his original Inc. account, but he was under the impression that we told him to open up a second account, and he was only going to exhaust the original $25,000. Apparently, he does not have any money to do his purchases for this Christmas unless he takes it out of that $69,000. That's why Ken is here also to review that. I read the contract and I couldn't find that section that says that. All it says on page 3 is that at the board's discretion, we will reimburse. You all took action to reimburse the first part on January for $15,000 and the final part in September. Ken, do you have anything to add on this?
Well, it's also in 2.3, but yeah, it talks about, it's up to y'all how you want to pay it, bottom line. If you want to pay in advance, you can, but I don't recommend it.
Chief Adler, I know you're watching. If you want to call in, you've got the number.
Well, considering the fact, Chief, that he does have $69,000, of which that money was money that was dispersed to him by us originally, I think that it's only right that he used that $69,000. If it were a situation where there was no money whatsoever, then that would be different. But those 69,000 in that separate account is money that we distributed to him through the $25,000 before. And if we start doing this, early stuff now for this department, the whole point, one of the big arguments that the departments have is that they're all treated the same, and that's what we've always done is we've always treated departments the same or have the same policies regardless of what their numbers look like or not. So I think it's very dangerous for us to go ahead and approve it, and then other departments are going to say, well, you did it for him, so you should do it for us. So why is it the West Valley can have that but we can't? So there's $69,000 in that other account. I would say that no, he can wait one more month, and if he really needs to, he can dip into that other account that's there.
Counselor, I do have a question. As far as if they were to dip into it, would we be able to reimburse them without getting into trouble? That's the kicker here.
Well, I think the bottom line is as a practical matter, if they dipped into that 69,000, they could do, once we send over the 15,000 payment in January, they could reimburse their account from that. And they're supposed to maintain it in a separate account, and they're supposed to return it. So I think it's a zero-sum game either way. They expend it now or and it's gone, because the money's meant to be used. I guess they could take the 15 and use it to pay the bills from the Christmas parties or whatever they did, and it's just there. Now they may come up short next year as a result.
Commissioners, I do have Chief Adler just joined the meeting.
Hi, Chief
Good
Adler.
evening, Commissioners. Hello.
Hello, Chief.
Happy holidays.
Happy
The
holidays.
reason I submitted this, thank you. The reason I submitted this because the fiscal year starts October 1, and per the contract, just like Ken just said, we're supposed to expend that whole $25,000 amount throughout the fiscal year. Anything we don't expend by September 30th, we're supposed to, the $69,000 Inc. account, which I brought up to your attention during previous meetings when we were in contract negotiations, was to stand by for if future boards did not approve the $25,000 expenditure for that year for whatever reason. That's what we were going to fall back on. In the contract, it says that $69,000 is not part of future funds, and I highlighted a form. I explained everything, my argument, to Chief Esparza, and I asked him to forward that all to you. So it should be there somewhere in Dropbox. I'm asking for a partial payment of $15,000 now, which still is going to leave $10,000, but we're already 3 months into the fiscal year. So yes, I'm at $1,900 in that matrix account, and I need to maintain a balance of $1,500, or else I get hit with fees from Chase Bank. So I don't want to dip down any more into that account or past that threshold. I've got a $490 buffer in that right now. And that's pretty much where I'm coming from. I sent you also the spreadsheets for both accounts showing balances and expenditures for the fiscal year.
Chief, you sent that to Chief Esparza?
I don't.
I did. I sent it to Chief Esparza and also Mariana, and I asked Chief Esparza if he could please forward it. And the whole point was I'm asking for $15,000 now, and which still leaves $10,000 throughout the rest of the year, so you can set whatever requirements, just like we did last year, where we had a $2,000 amount for everything we needed to do per the contract, which still leaves you in the driver's chair if I don't fulfill my end of the bargain.
Commissioners, you did make some changes. I don't, Chief, I don't have that email from you handy, or else I would have forwarded to Commissioners. I don't know if Mariana has it handy or received it. I know I didn't, or else I would have forwarded. But in any event,
he sent it on Saturday, Chief. Let me forward it to you because you're on the email.
All right.
Or I'll send it to the commissioners.
The only bad thing is right now we can't look at it since we're on the meetings. Yeah.
I can put it on the screen. Give me 1 minute.
Okay.
I guess my question is, for Ken. So, per the contract, what you mentioned that we can pay basically whenever we set those dates, right, of payment. So there's no obligation for us to pay, when the fiscal year starts. Correct.
That is correct. And it's based on the matrix. I'm assuming y'all established the matrix. Is that correct, Chief?
Yeah, that's correct. They changed the way they paid because a lot of chiefs had their understanding that if they got paid, they wouldn't have time to spend because a lot of them were spending their money towards the end of the fiscal year, towards the summer. So they wanted time. So the board changed it. They would receive the first part January, the first week of January, the last part in the end of September, and they would be allowed to spend it till December 31st. That way it was one calendar year rather than fiscal year because it kind of messes their annual events or whatever you want to have. That's why you all changed it that way. And it is on contract, like I said, page 3, that it stipulates the board can change it to whatever. So yes.
And
Commissioners, Chief,
we
I'm sorry.
can't, sorry, Chief Adler. Ken, we can't a fire station to dip into their other bank account, or we can't tell them how to utilize those funds in their Inc. account, right? Like that's completely separate from our contract with them.
That is correct. We, for lack of a better way of putting it, we just said, whatever you've got in your accounts now, we're going to forget about that. It should have come back to us, but we're going to start today with this $25,000 this year.
Right.
So we're not necessarily telling them what to do. It is just like with your kid's allowance. You get it every 2 weeks. Don't come to me to the second week if you spend it all in the first week. You know what I mean? That would be the only thing I would say about that.
Right. And when did we disperse the last payment to the stations based on the
September.
In September.
It was the remaining 10,000.
Yeah. And what's a big, I mean, I'm not wording it correctly, but what's the issue if we give him the money now that he needs?
You just have to change what you've done and vote on it. I don't know that there's an issue with you giving it to them now. I would say that you need to give it to all of them now. Or you get into that slippery slope that y'all were talking about, which is, did it for them, do it for us. Well, do it for everybody and let's just change it. If it needs to change.
When is the next disbursement date, Chief?
The first week of January.
So we're about a month out.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Ken. You said that if they spend it out of the, let's say the 69,000 they have now, they can take that 15,000 and put it back in there?
Yeah. I think so, because it's being expended for what we want it expended for. They just can't come back later. I mean, it's only 25,000. So if they get upside down, then they may end up having to dip into it for real, into the Inc. account for real.
Right. And excuse me, Ken, that's exactly what I did for last fiscal year. I reimbursed the Inc. account, and you can see that on my spreadsheets. The yellow one says Matrix account reimbursements. We reimbursed $18,097 from the Matrix into the Inc. to close out the fiscal year. So that was a big chunk of where that 25,000 went. Also, commissioners, in the letter I asked that we, and I wasn't part, I wasn't on the phone call where you changed it, and I apologize. But this is budgeted on a annual basis for your calendar year, which is the way we set up our 501c3s. We're not on a calendar year, we're on a fiscal year, just like you. We match you. So reporting to the IRS, it kind of creates a little bit of a headache if you go to a calendar year, as far as you make our first payment in January and then extend it all the way through December. If you started the fiscal year, gave us a partial payment, and it would match with what you do, with what we do, with the IRS and everything we file. It just makes more sense to me to say on the actual fiscal year reporting.
Chief Adler, I'm looking at the documents you sent now.
Okay. Do you have any
So,
questions on any of that?
yeah, my thoughts are, I'm trying to think back to this meeting where we made these changes. We reviewed basically all of the backup documentation for all of the stations, right, Chief Esparza, to make sure that everybody was meeting the requirements.
Correct.
And then we made the decision to move the first payment to January. But I think it's a valid point that if some of the stations also run on a fiscal year, we didn't take that into consideration, I don't think.
Commissioners, this was actually a request from the majority of the chiefs. That's why you all changed it to that.
Okay.
It's because the last payment you made to them was so late in the fiscal year that they couldn't spend it, especially with COVID happening. It was hard to have get-togethers. I think that was the driving force behind it. So if you want to grant that for this year, and I said thank you in my letter to you, if you want to continue to grant that, that would be great. As far as this very first matrix payment, the second one now in this fiscal year, though, I don't know how you want to go forward on that. It makes it harder for reporting requirements to IRS if I have to change to a calendar year than a fiscal year. Plus, I was going along with what the contract said from the beginning, where we had to spend it by the end of the fiscal year, which basically put me out of money by the due date. Or low on funds in that account, I should say, not out of money, because obviously my Inc. account does have funds that we're planning on maintaining unless there's something that happens in the future.
Right. I mean, I think that's a valid point, and I don't think West Valley should be penalized for, trying to stay within the boundaries of the original.
All of us are on a fiscal year, correct? October 1 to September 30th?
Yes.
Correct.
So really, this is a payment timing issue. This is not a tax issue that I can see, because it's due 5 months after the end of your fiscal year. The 990 and stuff.
Mhm.
I wasn't quite sure if you could see the form, Chief, Commissioners. Sorry.
No, we couldn't see it. Thank you.
Commissioners, I think that in the best interest right now is to, Chief Adler, do you see a problem if you use that 15,000 out of your other account and then reimburse it on January? As Ken states, you could.
No, that's exactly what we're doing. We're starting to make our purchases for our Christmas party out of the Inc. account, with the understanding that I'm going to do the same thing that I did, reimburse that account from the matrix. So if you pull up the other spreadsheet.
And then that way you have more time to consider this, Commissioners, in January's meeting to see if you want to change it back to fiscal year instead of calendar year. Gives you a little bit more time to get consensus from all the other chiefs.
Yeah, I think that'd be best to get a consensus from each and every one of them, Chief. That would help us make a better determination for everybody, instead of it affecting each and every one of them differently.
I agree.
Agree. Oh, so are we voting on this, or are we?
You can all, I guess, correct me if I'm wrong, can make a motion to just not take any action and it dies, right?
Well, I mean, or just do nothing. Nobody makes a motion and it dies. You don't have to make a motion to simply have a motion on the table, but if it doesn't get a second, it would also die.
So item number 9, postpone November 17, 2020 by Treasurer Rick Avalos. Discussion and action on West Valley Fire Department service contract for money initial payment for fiscal year 2020-2021. Do I have a motion, Commissioners? No motion made, item dies.
Thank you, Chief Adler, for your input.
Thanks,
You're welcome.
guys.
Merry Christmas.
Thank you, Chief.
I know.
Item number 10, discussion and action on the comparative or single auditive report from SBNG. Commissioners, I did talk to Teo Cabrera here present to discuss the audit as you all wish to keep it the same. He did receive a notification from one of the county auditors that he was okay with just the single audit, single year audit. There is mixed feelings on this, so I wanted to bring him on for you all to make a decision, a more informed decision on how you all want it. Teo, go ahead.
Hello, can you all hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yes, thank you very much for having me, Chief Esparza. Yes, I mean, really, all we're trying to do is we're trying to seek ways to make your audit more efficient. And I mean, I'll give you a little bit of background of how this impacts your audit and how it's compared to other governments that we've worked with. So as far as I remember, at least for the last 5 years that I've either looked at your audit somewhere else or been involved in doing your audit, you guys have prepared a full-blown comparative financial statement. So what does that mean? It means that when the audit report is prepared, we need to present 2 years, right? Now, that sounds pretty good. However, keep in mind that you all need to comply with governmental accounting standards, right? So there is, a significant amount of information that goes into your audit, and a lot of this information is required to be presented in a comparative format. So I'll just give you some examples. You guys have about 30 different loans in existence in your district, and each of those loans are already required to be presented balance at the beginning of the year, balance at the end of the year. Your pension, you need to present information at the beginning of the year as far as how much money is owed in the pension, and also at the end of the year. Fixed assets, which is all your equipment, your buildings, your financial statements need to present beginning of the year numbers, end of the year numbers. And then there's another section, which is the management discussion and analysis, which is basically a narrative section that talks about where you were at the beginning of the year, where you are at the end of the year, and basically has a lot of comparative information. So that is your basic requirement for any government that is presenting audited financial statements. Now, over the last years, you are presenting 2 years. So what does that mean? That for everything that I already explained, you need to present 3 years of information, right? So you need to present 3 years on your debt schedules. You need to present 3 years on your fixed assets. You need to present 3 years on your pensions, and you need to present 3 years on your management discussion and analysis. So the only other government that I'm aware that does that locally here is ESD number 1, right? So it's the 2 districts. So I mean, we have no problem continuing to prepare this report in this comparative format. But we do believe that is a little bit redundant in some of these information. And unfortunately, we need to follow the rules. So if you want to have a full-blown 2-year report, we need to go ahead and prepare the 3 years for all these sections that I mentioned, so we can give you a clean opinion. So, having that additional 3rd year in your financial statements is adding about at least 20 hours of auditor time every year. At least 20 hours, because not only do we have to prepare the schedules, but we have to review them to make sure that obviously that they're correct and that they actually foot and that they tie to the information that was presented in the last year. So at some point, I do recommend that you consider whether you do need to prepare full-blown 2-year financial statements. I know that it was something that at some point the county asked for, and I believe that's the reason why you guys went to the 2-year requirement or 2-year format to begin with. So I just want to see really if that's what you can want to continue doing. I do want to point out that every few years there are changes in the way how financial statements are presented, right? Accounting rules keep changing. And in 2022, there's going to be a big change. There's going to be a new standard for all your long-term leases. So in that year, if you are wanting to do a 2-year report, then you're going to have to go back and restate that previous year and basically do a bunch of work all over again to be able to meet your clean opinion, right? Because whenever we have a new accounting standard, we have to restate not just the current year, but if we're presenting a 2-year report, we need to restate the previous year report. So in the horizon, it's going to become more and more complicated to continue doing this 2-year report presentation. And frankly, I'm not really sure how useful it is for you guys, but you're going to be paying us at least 20 hours to do this, right? Maybe even more going forward as accounting changes continue to be more cumbersome. So, I mean, it's a conversation that I had with Chief Esparza, and I kind of wanted it to put it out there to you guys. And, you know, hopefully if the county, because really the county is the primary user of your financial statements, and it has to come from the county whether they will accept a single year financial statement. And keep in mind, if we're going to single year financial statement, there's still a lot of comparative information because a lot of the sections require to have the 2 years already. So I really want to see if the council members are fine with, if the commissioners are fine with this, and also taking advantage of Mr. Hartgrove that he's here. He's one of the users of the financial statements. If he is fine with making this change, or if he would rather continue to have the full-blown 2-year financial statements.
I mean, may I interrupt? And the county already has our previous year's financial statements already anyway, so they can make the comparison, correct?
That is correct, yes.
I do have a question. How much money would that save us, Mr. Dale?
Well, in this year, I'm looking at least, you know, $2,500, $2,700. I mean, dollar amount, really for an agency of your size, it's not that much. But I mean, it's not only this year. I mean, it's year after year, and in the changes in the years in which we have a big change in accounting principles, it's impossible to calculate how much it would save you.
Right.
This year we don't have too many changes because of COVID. There's a lot of extensions that allow a government not to implement those new changes in accounting standards. But you know, sooner or later we're going to have to implement the lease standard. And again, if there's going to be parts of your financial statements that show 3 years, I mean, we're looking at going back 2 years and redoing some of the work for 2 years.
All right. Hey, Wally, can we get your take on this?
Sure. So Talo had emailed me some time ago asking, you know, what the county's preference was, and my response to the chief was, it really is a board decision. As Ken stated, and also Mr. Cabrera stated, we do receive the annual audit every year. And so for comparative purposes, if we wanted to look at your expense changes from one year to the next, or reserves, or your outstanding long-term debt or anything, we're going to have the ability to go back and get the prior year and compare it to the current year audit. So if the board so chooses to make it a little less expensive for the board, and you know, in the long run, you're looking at over 10 years, somewhere between $27,000 and $30,000 of effectuated savings, really is a board preference. So we're fine with it either way. In talking to the chief, I like a comparative audit. But that's me personally. You know, when the chief and them reached out to the county auditor's office, who this gets remitted to in accordance with statute as well, the staff in the county auditor's office said single year is fine because we have your prior year. So it's, you know, one accountant's preference over another. If the board so chooses to do it on a single year basis, we're fine with that.
Thank you, Mr.
I have a question, Mr. Cabrera.
Yes.
I was understanding you saying, and I could be totally wrong, but what I heard you say was that if we wanted to do a formal comparative audit, that it would be an additional expense moving forward.
Well, Yes, yes. I mean, really, because we already did a comparative audit last year, right? So it would be similar to what you guys paid last year, right? But you would certainly have some savings this year if you go back to, the single year report. And in the years in which there's changes in accounting principles, right? I mean, we wouldn't have to restate information that we previously issued, right? So think for example, your long-term debt, right? The district has approximately 25, maybe 30 loans now. In your audit, there's a section in which each of those loans are listed, right? And the accounting principles are listed for each of those loans. So some of those loans are leases. They're not banknotes, they're capital leases. So in 2022, the way how accounting is done for capital leases is going to change. So think about how that's going to change your audit. I mean, that's going to mean additional time going back to restate all the years that are shown in your audit. I mean, that's an example of something that could happen 1 year. That's an additional expense that, again, is based on preference. It's not necessarily based on audit requirement.
Okay, so when you said it would be about an additional 20 hours of work for the comparative, that's compared to a single audit report, not compared to what we did last year.
Right. So compared, if we were to go to a single year report this year, we would be saving about 20 hours this year.
Okay.
That's good. So it would be less work than last time.
Okay.
Any other questions, commissioners?
No, sir.
Item number 10, discussing the action on comparative versus single audited report from SPNG.
Do we have to make a decision now?
They're in the process of doing this.
The time.
Right. I mean, right now is the time to tell us if you want us to keep it the same as last year. And if you just want to roll with the same as last year, we're fine. I mean, it's really not a lot of time, but I just think it's a good opportunity for you guys to make this whole audit process less complicated than it already is. But I mean, I would rather have you guys make a decision now than maybe have us roll with it and then change your mind a month from now when we're talking about the audit, or when you see the audit bill and you're going to see, wait a minute, what is it that all these hours are going to? Part of the hours are going to this.
Mr.
Cabrera. The county is fine with this, right?
What's that?
The county is fine with us doing this.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a choice. That's what Wally is saying.
Okay.
Correct.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Theo did reach out to, and I don't want to butcher his last name, Otterback, or what's his last name?
James Otterback.
Yes.
And he's the one that replied to him that single year is fine.
Right. Mr. Otterback said that his concern is that we get him this report as early as possible, because he then needs to get this report and then he needs to put it in the county's report. It all gets rolled over into the county's report. So the earlier we can get it to him, the better for him. And, obviously not having to put all these additional schedules together, it really saves a lot of time. It's a lot more efficient.
Mr. Cabrera, more or less, what is it costing us on a per year basis?
I think last year we paid about 20 to 22,000, I believe.
Right. So we're saving maybe about 10%.
Okay.
I think
Any
we
other
should go.
discussion, commissioners? Sorry, go ahead.
I mean, it makes perfect sense to just go back to the single year report. Just make a motion, Chief.
You may.
A motion to switch back to the single year reporting.
I have a motion to go back to a single year reporting by Commissioner Santana. Do I have a second?
Second. Sorry, Wally.
Yeah, second, sorry.
No apologies.
Second by Commissioner Butler.
It's
Commissioner
one
Diaz
versus the other.
Aye.
Commissioner Butler,
Aye.
Commissioner Santana,
Aye.
Commissioner Barnes,
Aye.
Commissioner Avalos.
Aye.
Motion carries. Item number 11, review and discuss credit card purchasing and policies and protocols for district employees and volunteers submitted by Ms. Butler.
So this was based off of our last meeting when we were discussing the Chase Bank proposal for credit cards. And we had mentioned that we should establish a credit card purchasing policy before we moved forward with bringing on, a credit card provider and adjusting how we do credit card purchases. So that's really what this item is about. I know, Chief, that you have another item on the agenda related to purchasing policy, but I reviewed that and I don't really see any details related to credit cards and how they're used and who's going to be using them and limits on them and those kinds of things. So I don't know if you have any updates there.
Commissioners, back in September, you had already taken action on the credit card policy and how it was going to be handled, making it to where the district employees would make all the purchases, and then the chiefs would have $1,000, the assistant chiefs $500 for a maximum of $2,000. Everything was going to be encompassed in-house. We authorized the purchasing department and all the staff here that handles all this to have a little bit higher credit limits because now they're encompassing everything here to the district. When I brought the new credit card system or the vendor to give a presentation, it's I do feel that the chiefs sometimes have legitimate necessities to do, and we have to give them the opportunity to do it. It's not something that we normally would do. I think the way we've been doing it right now has been working. It's got a little bit of a hiccups. We are implementing new different things to try to streamline the way that the purchasing side goes, the maintenance side goes to the chiefs. So it's been working. I'm sorry, somebody's calling in. So it's been working.
The window there.
I'm sorry?
I'm just kidding. I said it's probably one of your neighbors looking through your windows there calling you.
That's right.
New York City.
So we do have that in place. The only thing that I wanted to do with the new credit card is I like the fact that it protects the district from misuse or any unauthorized purchases made by anybody with a card holder versus the credit cards that we have now. It does not. If you have a credit card, the district is not protected because we don't have that ability. Versus if we go to the new credit card, it gives us that extra protection. I believe they told me a $150,000 protection against fraudulent purchases, which we don't currently have now. But I think right now everything has been working. Like I said, I will be revising some of the ways that we do this for the chiefs. I do talk to them and I think it's been working, but there is a little bit of a snag and we will be working to fix that so that they have a little bit more freedoms, if you would, but the new card would give us that in addition to the protection in case somebody purchases something out of place.
Well, Chief, I didn't intend for this to be a discussion over the Chase Bank credit card. I remember making that decision about the credit card purchasing limits, but I don't know that we ever established or saw a formal purchasing policy for credit card, who are going to be authorized users, what those controls are going to be, who approves of the purchases, and those kinds of things. Did we ever see something like that?
The only thing you all approved is, well, of course, all my staff here, you did approve that. And then the chiefs and the assistant chiefs at the departments. That's who has a credit card. You did set the limit at $1,000 and then $500 to max $2,000 each in case they incurred anything else that was a necessity. Because right now they should only be purchasing food, essentially, or minor little repair things that happen to a truck while the maintenance department's not there. They can go buy a bulb or whatever. Other than that, there's actually nothing else they need to be purchasing unless it's an emergency. I did have a conversation with Mr. Avalos, and I'm going to give him I'm going to give the same example. I think that we should have a way to authorize a little bit more. And I'm going to use this as an example. If the chiefs are out there traveling for training and they have a accident or anything and they need a way to secure lodging, secure a rental vehicle, and they don't have the limit, I think there should be a way for us to give them a higher limit for emergencies, but it's going to be something that we are quite aware of and it's happening and that it's going. Right now, even if you set the terms, there is no way to kind of put a stop to it until after it's already happened.
Commissioner Diaz, did you have a comment?
Well, he kind of answered it. That was my concern. If they're out of town and they needed extra money and stuff like that, I'd say if they're out of town and they've got, some of the other volunteers with them, before they leave, they need to check with you and up it up, before they leave out of town. Not wait till the last minute till they need it. Get it ahead of time. Get it done get it approved ahead of time. Because if they wait till the last minute, I mean, the chances in being able to get to the bank and get it approved and get it done in one day is like trying to pull teeth on somebody that doesn't have teeth. If that makes any sense. So
and I do agree with you, Commissioner. We do need to put a little bit more. We've been learning a little bit with the chiefs when they call and say, "Hey, Chief, I need a little bit of oil for this truck." Go ahead. They follow the policy right now. They're doing it, but it's been very minute things. I think the one that has done it a couple of times lately is Chief Adler, and he followed the policy. He was given the authorization to continue for something that he went and got himself. So I think it's working. There is some hiccups.
Yeah. I think my question is, where is that policy? So you said they followed the policy. So there's a policy that has been communicated to all of the chiefs in writing about credit card
in September, when you all had the meeting, that's the policy that you said every purchase goes through the district.
Could you send that to me so that I could see it? The actual policy?
I can send you the video of exactly what you all said.
No, I don't mean what we said.
Asking if it's in a documented already.
No, it's not in a documented because at that moment, we didn't actually break it down as to what. All we said was what were the parameters that they could do buy food. And then in case of any other expenditures, it would go to get authorization to come over here. But if you'd like, I could put that in writing in accordance to what you all said at that September meeting.
What I think the purpose of my agenda item is to make sure that we have an established, documented policy for credit card purchasing, that everybody who is authorized to use a credit card is aware of the stipulations and the restrictions of use, and that we have the controls in place and documented for the use of credit card purchases. I think just as institutional, best practice, we should have that policy in writing, and just to make sure that there's no confusion about that with the users. And then as we look into ways that we could expand our, our credit card options, that we have that policy already in place in writing.
Well, and if I may make a suggestion, I have used before, and I understand what you're saying, Commissioner Butler, is she just wants a policy, something written down. And the bottom line is we probably could easily go to the city or the county and find those policies, get them in Word, make sure they're crafted properly, and then present them to y'all for approval.
It's a little bit different. I did receive the one from Wally.
Yeah, we did.
Their policy is nowhere near to what we are going to allow the chiefs to do. So it will be, but I will have it ready to present at the next commissioners meeting.
Okay, and I just want to make sure that everybody understands what those stipulations are. Even now, Chief, you're saying, well, there's, I guess trial and error. We're learning what those boundaries are, what kinds of flexibility we need to be building into this policy. And I just don't want it to be like, oh, well, only Chief Adler knows that because he called and he asked, right? It needs to be across the board that everybody understands what those what those policies are and what those permissions are. So that's what I would request. If we could have that for the next meeting, that would be great.
I will have it before next meeting. That way you all can individually, and I'm going to say it like this, individually give me your feedback so I can make changes if I need be, so that when we present this, it's got a little bit more of your feedback if you like, Commissioner Butler. I'll send it to you in the next 2 weeks.
Yeah, that's fine. Happy to provide input. Thank you.
Thank you.
So item number 11 for informational purposes only until next month, correct?
Yes, sir.
Item number 12, review and discuss Scano HR consulting services submitted by Commissioner Butler.
Okay, this again came up at the last meeting, and I wanted to make sure that we didn't lose focus on this topic. So I wanted to see if we could have Tommy and Gano HR Consulting Services kind of give us an overview of what they currently provide to the district. I think to us it was kind of the issue that we talked about last meeting was about hiring practices and maybe making how do we make sure that those are standardized across the district. And Tommy wasn't in that meeting. And so that got me thinking, like, how do we, in what areas do we engage our HR consultant, right? And what areas do we not? And I don't know what that line is personally. And so I really thought it would be helpful if, as a board, we understood more clearly what our HR consultants' roles are. And maybe it's time to reevaluate whether those are meeting the needs of the district, if there's an option to expand those services, or if there are other things that we should be tapping into our consultant for that we're not currently. So, Chief, did you ask Tommy if he could be present here to talk to us about this?
I believe he is on the line. Tommy, are you here?
He was here earlier.
Yeah, he's here, Ms. Butler.
Yes, he's in.
You guys can't see me?
Yeah.
No, I can't.
I see you at the very bottom of my screen.
Pop
PC.
up.
Oh, maybe you need to turn your camera on. Is your
Oh,
camera
the
on?
camera's on. It just,
He's on.
maybe the camera doesn't want to see me.
I can see you if you talk.
Oh, there
it
you
can
are.
Pop up on other people's screens.
Yeah, there you are. I see you now.
So my internet was acting up, so that's probably part of the issue. So to answer your question, Ms. Butler, I heard you 100%. And as far as our services, you know, we have sort of a la carte service. We can provide all HR needs according to the client's needs. And I mean, we've been with the district now going on probably 7 years, if not a little bit longer. And, you know, we are literally at the mercy at this point of what Chief's liking is. And if he wants to bring us in for investigations, he'll bring us in. If he handles it his own, he'll handle it on his own. But we can do anything from the hiring piece all the way to what we like to say is coming in the front door and all the way to the back door, meaning the hiring all the way to the firing piece. And anything in between, any employee issues from payroll issues, not getting paid correctly, leave of absences, everything that everything that involves personnel is probably the best question to answer because answering human resource, it covers so much. Mm-hmm. But again, it's really to the mercy of what the chief or even Mariana at this point, but I know that now the chief kind of took over. You know, I'll give you an example that, you know, Mariana's predecessor, she would reach out to us and say, I have some issues with my employees. Here's the documentation. I need some write-ups. Can you evaluate it? Look at it, prepare it for me. I want you to come down here and terminate. She would be very useful to our services or vice versa. We would, you know, help her with that. But she did utilize our services to the fullest. If that's something that Chief wants to continue doing, that's really his call. If he wants to handle it, just ask us, advise how to approach it. That's really what a consultant does. But we go beyond the consulting piece because we can definitely do a lot of hands-on. If they want to send unemployment claims, if they want to send anything that they want the HR responsibility off of their shoulders, this is what we would take on. So trainings, again, Chief, I don't know if I'm missing anything, but.
No, I think you've hit everything on the nail. On my part, everything's remained the same. It's a little bit different. I think the question is what you assist on, and I know that you review all our firefighters to ensure that they meet the qualifications that we put out there, and then they are reviewed by my board of officers, and then they make the selection after that. I think the last one was Commissioner Diaz put out it, how are we hiring on the administrative side? And I think that's where Ms. Butler wanted more clarification on that. Mariana still has the ability to go out and say, hey, Mr. Cano, I need you to review this. And at the end, I think the only thing that's changed is they do the hiring and I review all the firings along with you. Remember, that's the way we always used to do it even with Annette. When she got to a point that somebody was going to get fired, and you and I went many times to stations and ended up not firing people because it was not their fault, you know, after we reviewed it. And that's the part that leaves me out of what they're doing. They do the hiring and I do the reviewing of the firing along with you all to ensure that we're following, what would you like to say, excuse me?
Consistency?
Yes, to me not being involved with the hiring. And then if there is an issue, then you and I will review it and go over it. That person needs to be terminated. That's the way a person gets terminated.
And just so you know, I mean, we've had, you know, Brenda, she usually is the one that would deal with Mariana Navarrete, and I think Brenda's on this meeting as well. And, you know, Cindy, I know that Mariana reaches out to Brenda Molina more than she does to me. When there's something more complex, Mariana will reach out to me. But again, that's why I bring in a team. You guys have met Brenda, you've met Cindy, they've gone to the board meetings when pre-COVID, and they are as involved as I am. Chief has a direct line of communication with me, and I think Chief really calls me more than he probably does Cindy and Brenda. So again, we can funnel this whichever way the ESD wants it done, and but we are only going to be involved if they reach out to us, because we are not there 24/7. In fact, we're not there at all, especially now post-COVID, right? But, you know, we can get as involved as they want us to get us involved. And again, Mariana reaches out to Brenda. Brenda goes through the process of posting. Brenda gets the emails. She's, you know, sorts them out, cleans it up, sends it to Mariana. I know with Chief, it's a little bit different, but, you know, both the Chief and Mariana's hiring practices are just a little bit different. But again, if it's a policy that you want us to create where they're doing it consistently and going through one particular person, then we can do that. If Chief has his way of hiring people, you know, like anybody else, any business that any of you work at, departments have a different way of hiring. They should follow the same protocols, but sometimes they have a different way of doing it. 15-minute interviews versus a 30-minute interview, for example. So I hope I was able to answer your question, Ms. Butler, but, you know, I'm open to any questions, suggestions, recommendations, anything.
Well, I think for me, it was more of a question of how involved you are on a day-to-day basis, but you're saying it's basically ad hoc or as needed, right? So whenever your services are needed, the chief will call you or Mariana will call your team to basically you know, bring you in to those things, but you're not proactively engaged with the district in, you know, identifying HR or personnel issues and addressing them, right?
We're not the ones seeking, you know, we're not reaching out to them saying, hey, you know, is everything okay? Again, our practice has been now for at least 7 years. You know, Chief will call me for a minute there. I think during this post-COVID time, it seemed like for, I don't know, Chief, 3-4 months, it was almost an everyday call in the morning. We've got this going on, trying to figure out this whole COVID leave and concerns and things of that nature. And then it kind of just tapered off. Right. Do I reach out to Chief and say, you haven't called me? Do you still love me? No. But you know, it's exactly that. We're waiting for what it is that they need, whatever his needs are. I know I want to say last year, towards the end of the year, you know, when we try to do these committees, you know, we try to gather and put some of these protocols in place. That kind of got left in the back burner. I know that there was a couple of things that were going on in the district and some changes, all the, changes that Chief made. But we're still, open to, if he wants to go back and readdress that and start setting those protocols, just waiting on Chief.
Tommy is involved in all aspects of my, well, I'm gonna say 90% of the staff. If there is an issue, he's always CC'd, and then that way he can funnel it down to his person, because it's happened. I've talked to Cynthia, and I've talked to Brenda on a couple of instances when I know that he's busy also, but they are CC'd on anything that's employee that requires for them to review. And they've also called me and given me the section of what we need to do to keep it consistent and make sure that we are out of trouble. I think that there is got to be a little bit more that we could do. And of course, we can always send them more if that's what you're looking for. But I think we also need parameters as to what you all want us to do as a board. If it's the hiring process, how is it that you want? I'm going by the last recommendation by Mr. Cano and the committee to allow my staff to hire. And I just be the one to review if somebody needs to be let go with Mr. Cano and make sure that we're following that policy to make sure I don't get involved. Even with the firemen, they review every applicant and then they tell us these are the applicants that met your criteria. Then they get handed over to them and then they do the interviews after they've already done their part. And then at the end, if there's somebody that's acting up and it's happened, they get referred to them, or they call us and tell us how we should handle that and what paper documentation we need to have. Injuries, same way. We've had an injury. He's been reviewed by Mr. Cano. We're sending him the information. He tells us what he recommends, and we follow that. So I think it's been going there. But is it that you want to change the way we hire? Then I think the board would need to make that policy and tell Mr. Cano how we would have to follow that.
Just to be clear, I'm not actively promoting any changes to the hiring procedures. I think that was the discussion we had the last meeting, and if any of the other commissioners do, then I think, oh, cute puppy. We could bring that up now, but
what was that?
That's a cute puppy. I meant if anybody wants to, if any of the other commissioners have issues that they want to discuss, I think now's the time to mention those. But one last question I have, Tommy, is your monthly fee that you charge the district is a flat fee, whether the chief calls you every day for a month or whether he doesn't call you at all. It's a flat fee, right?
Absolutely. Chief and I can be on, 20 calls in 1 week. Fees the same. And while Mariana's on the back end reaching out to Brenda to help her with, postings and hiring, fees the same. And if they have them audit the files, fees the same. Nothing changes. It's just a flat fee. And it's been like that for quite a while already. So I know there's been growth, but our fee has been consistently the same. We did have that, I think it was 2 months, Mariana, correct me if I'm wrong, where we billed for a couple of months when we did in the committees, because we were getting more involved in the operational piece, but that
went back to,
I think it was too much. I think it was too much at once. Trying to tackle 3 different areas. It was a lot, anyway, that was just my question. It was how the fees were structured.
Well, we had some, I'll just put this in. We had some very interesting legal law review kind of questions, test questions with some personnel that were severely implicated by COVID. And Tommy was very involved in that, for example.
Right. Okay. That helps me, gives me clarity over, what your role is, Tommy, with the district. I don't know if any other commissioners have questions for you.
I just want to add, while they're thinking of their questions, we're not experts in every industry, but we know the ESD is already enough, and we still learn from Chief, and we've been learning from Ken, and just like we also represent ESD1, and they have their council, and we learn certain things because of just like COVID. We all had to learn, just like Ken and Chief and myself, and everybody's learning. But the good thing is that we understand already the roles. We understand Chief's role, and just to kind of say a little bit of what Chief just mentioned about our recommendation is to allow. I still a big believer that Chief is at the top of the helm, right below the board, but to allow Mariana and his assistant chief to take on more of the paperwork, the like the hiring piece. Chief should still have the ultimate say, but they should be doing all the legwork, and that's usually how things work in any business when you have an organizational structure. I think my recommendation to Chief is don't try to tackle everything, because you're going to fail in everything, and that's why the structure is something that we've been trying to push and still trying to do all these trainings. But again, COVID happened, and now it kind of put things into a different perspective. But that's going to be a target, assuming that we continue our services with you all. That's going to be a target once we get back to some type of normalcy, and still try to teach Mariana and the assistant chief on how to handle some of those HR issues, and with our guidance, of course. But we do it if you want us to do it 100%. But for the most part, it's more of a learning curve. It's a training curve. So, just so you understand how we like to operate with our clients. Okay.
And again, just to touch base on that, even like I said at the last meeting, I've talked to Tommy more in these last, I think, 6 months than I ever talked, because not only when we had the COVID problems, he's calling me also as the fire marshal to find out if I'm going to go shut down most of his clients. So it goes both ways. It's totally separate from that, but we do keep in communication with his staff. They can call me at any time and ask me the correct. But I am going with that. My maintenance staff, my purchasing staff, they get to do their own thing. They come to me when they have a problem, because ultimately I'll be the one to answer to the board when something goes wrong. But I'm letting them take charge of what they're doing. That way they feel that they have to own that. So I am going with that. There's a lot of times that I have to get involved because they don't either know how to handle it, or we will get Mr. Kama involved. But other than that, I think the only thing that was up last month is how we hire. And like I said, that's the way it's been happening. But yes.
Hey, Roger. Hey, Roger. This is Mike. Hey, Tommy, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Hey, how you doing? Hey, I know we started doing those structures and job descriptions and stuff like that. And I know COVID started. We didn't know how to figure it out, how to keep going. I think the fact that we're all talking tonight, we figured it out. Is there a way to re-engage that? Because especially with COVID going on, these guys need more structure now than I think they did pre-COVID, because as we put these added stressors on them, and they're responding in this within this environment. Is there a way to start looking at how to get back towards that without waiting till COVID's over?
I think the structure was already completed. I think at the end, the only thing that we were going through this, and maybe this beginning of next year, we can go back to now settling down everybody. Now that we're settled down, we completed our first year at the district office, and everybody's kind of taking charge of what their departments are, is to put now their individual areas that's going to be there, and kind of make it work a little bit faster now. I think we should almost be completed now, just to change a couple of things that we've done to each one of those positions. But I think we should be completed. I know the hierarchy has already been completed. We did that, I can't remember when, but it's been done. I just think it needs a couple more modifications, and I think we should be able to tackle it within the first couple of months of next year.
So,
And just kind of
if you
goes
allow me
back
just
to
to
what I said.
interject,
Go ahead.
Boss, if you'll allow me just to interject really quick. We do have, Commissioner Barnes, Chief did provide the job descriptions and we have them. It's just a matter of doing those small corrections, I think, that Chief is talking about. And then that would be a final thing, and then providing with the commissioners with the final draft per se for your approval. But we did, that is something that is, I would say, what, 90% done, Chief Esparza?
Yeah, I believe so. Like I said, it's just a couple of changes that we've made now that we absorbed everything here. Go back and make sure that their duties are now clear as to what they're doing. And I think they're completed. Other than that, I did work on all those.
And for example, we do the draft because, again, like I said before, we're not the industry experts. We do the draft, the chief tweaks, and whatever he tweaks, he sends to us, and we say, well, it makes sense, doesn't make sense. And then any agreement or disagreement, then of course that's what's brought to the board for approval and maybe even input as well. So that's how this works. How our involvement is just really creating the draft, and then, you know, Chief and Mariana will do the tweaking if they need to any policy.
And that's like I said, it's an ongoing. I would love to say we could complete it now. I want to make sure that I do that, but we just had this conversation this morning with the county. It's like my plate is right now full with everything else going on in addition to what we got going on. So I want to make sure that we have a little bit more time to make sure we finish them all.
Hey, so Tommy, I know when pre-COVID we had one training, our first training, which we had the staff. Can we maybe start beginning to do that training via TeamView? Maybe
Absolutely.
like in February, right? I know right now we do have a lot on our plate with the consolidating and the audit and all the changes that are going on, and then COVID.
Yep.
There has been a lot on both of our plates, everybody's plates here. So I would like to see us starting those trainings, because I think they're going to help us understand and how to, in different situations with employees and dealing, and how to reach out to you for that guidance when something is going.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, it goes back to what I said. You know, when you guys dictate, you tell us, Tommy would like for you to come in and do trainings, whether it be in person or virtual. You know, we're going out there. We are going out and meeting clients. So it's on your beck and call, really. So
Boss, just so that I can give a little bit of input, we have another, what we can do too is even your new hires, if you need, Mariana, like that when they're onboarded, so we don't have to wait for a whole group. I mean, now with the whole virtual thing available to us, it facilitates things a little easier, right? Because we don't have to gather everybody in one location. We can do it from home as long as they leave their camera on and they're paying attention and things of that nature. That is definitely something we can do. And I've had classes of one person, you know, because it doesn't cost anybody anything, right? I mean, but what we can do maybe perhaps is set up a schedule, kind of reflecting your new hires, and maybe once a month or every other week or that same afternoon or when they're going to start the shift, however, and then do those virtually. That's what we've been doing with, you know, what I've been doing with other, you know, we've been doing with other situations. I mean, we can definitely do that. It doesn't have to be this mass group of 20 or 5, or, I mean, it can be 1, it can be 2. You know, I think Thursday I have a harassment training with 1 new hire. I mean, I would rather we handle that, the sooner the better, right? To get that signature and get that proof, so that we're removing, like boss, like Tommy would say, you know, get rid of the excuses. You know, you were trained, you were given the tools, this is the expectation. And we're not having to wait, you know, whether it be every quarter or whatever. So yes, definitely, that is something we can get together with, and we can coordinate with that. And if there's people that haven't had the training from the last time, let's get on that. I'll call you tomorrow. Brenda and I will call you tomorrow, and maybe you can have that list and we can schedule something. I mean, even before the end of the week, if you want, if it's available to them, or first of next week, and then knock out those trainings.
I think we're all caught up on that, with the exception of 1, maybe the new hire.
Yeah, the new hire, which she just came in last week. But the training, I don't think it was I think it was a training, right? Tommy, I think Brenda and you, Cynthia, were there. It was the first one we ever had. And you talked basically about the chain of command and how the employee needs to follow that chain of command before it even gets to Chief Esparza. And I think it was the management training, I believe.
Yep.
It's just management, lieutenants, purchasing, and the supervisor for maintenance, and also our assistant chief. So that's what I mean. Continuing that where we started, to continue that as a training.
Absolutely.
Okay. Well, we'll set those up, because on the fire side, we have a lot on our plate right now. So I don't want to take them away from what they're doing right now, setting up COVID sites and making sure they're all running fine. But we will set something up at the beginning of this next year, just to make sure that we are going with that. So item number 10, number 12, sorry, is review and discuss Kano HR consulting services. Any other comments, commissioners?
No, sir.
No?
Negative.
Informational purposes only?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Ms. Butler.
Thank you. Thank you both for being here with us tonight. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
And
Item number 13,
Chief,
discuss
before
an
you go
action.
to the next one, sorry.
Sorry?
Before you go on to the next one, can we get back on the notification of the board meeting so that we can attend every single one of them?
Oh, yeah, it's sent out to everybody.
I don't know if a new email was created and.
Well, that's because I only put like the board members and then but everything is broadcasted via.
I'll let Angie know to put you in the email.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Maria.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think you need an invite to join.
What's that?
I think you're gonna need an invite to join, right?
Yes,
Right.
you need an
Yes.
invite because they're out of the agency. Yes. But we will fix that.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, item number 13, discussion and action approving 5 members from the Socorro Fire Department to attend Life EMS Academy to take advanced EMT class totaling $10,350. Commissioners, Chief Sariana sent in a request for the agenda. He wanted to follow suit with what you all approved for Clint. I was gonna say Independent School District, but Clint Fire Department, for the same training that they're gonna get. He'd like to send 5. This is a budgeted item for training. I mean, if it's available, I don't see why not. I would recommend
It's
it.
available. They still have available 26,000.
Absolutely.
I make a motion to approve.
Second.
Have a motion by Commissioner Diaz, second by Commissioner Santana. Commissioner Diaz?
Aye.
Commissioner Butler?
Aye.
Commissioner Santana?
Aye.
Commissioner Barnes?
Aye.
And Commissioner Avalos?
Aye.
Motion carries. Commissioner Barnes, I'm kind of like feeling that you're a little down. Are you okay?
No, it's going well. I think we
What's
have
that?
undereducated kids in our neighborhood that are on tearing up the internet right now trying to do homework.
I didn't quite hear all that, but okay.
He has bad internet connection because his neighbors are sucking up all the.
Yeah, we have
Oh, the
bad
bandwidth?
internet
The
connection.
bandwidth?
Yeah,
All right.
yeah, kids in the neighborhood are.
Item number 14, discussion and action on closing all accounts for the fire departments and transferring to the district's operating account. Commissioners, I did have a talk with Mariana on this. We called our Chase Bank representative, and the best way to do this is to cut checks from each one of those accounts into the district and then close in the accounts. He said it'd be too cumbersome if we try to close the accounts and then transfer all that into our accounts. So he recommended that first we transfer every funds from those accounts into the district and then close out the accounts. Just call him and then that's easy. But if we try to do it the other way, it'd be too complicated.
So this is basically each fire department's operating account, and since we're not reimbursing them anymore, everything's coming out of the operating at the district level. Those accounts are not needed anymore, so all that money needs to come back. Now, I do need, that will probably hit next year's audit because it's gonna be funds that were basically deposited back to the operating.
Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Second.
Have a motion by Commissioner Santana, second by Commissioner Diaz. Order Mr. Barnes.
Mr. Barnes, that's fine.
Barnes.
I yield my motion to my honored colleague from the great state of Texas.
Second. Okay, he's coming alive. He's coming alive. Commissioner, second by Commissioner Barnes. Commissioner Diaz?
Aye.
Commissioner Butler?
Aye.
Commissioner Santana?
Aye.
Commissioner Barnes,
Aye.
and Commissioner Avalos.
Aye.
Motion carries. Item number 15, discussion and action on Texas Mutual Insurance, the reasons why claims were denied for paid staff who tested positive for COVID-19, submitted by Commissioner Avalos. I did have a conversation with Commissioner Avalos earlier. One of the things that Ken did send me some information as to how do we get them to change their opinion. And I'm going to tell you the same thing that I told Commissioner Avalos. In having talks with the chief of ESD number 1, he was denied his workman's comp at first, and it's based on your answers. That's what the insurance is using. They can't tell us what the answers were because that's private, but it's based on the answers that you give at the time when they call you for the interview. So really, I don't know how to help them there. We can always get Ken to give them a call, see if we can get them to change their minds. However, I do believe that the amount that we paid out would probably cost us more money, Ken, to pay you to go fight that.
Well, yes, and some of it we might get refunded on the whole COVID thing, but right now every insurer is basically saying COVID is not covered generally, and I'm sure Tommy and them have run into this, but you know, COVID is just like catching the flu at work. You know, it's not considered a life-threatening or whatever. I can't remember the exact terminology out of the statute, but it's not considered one of those other things like cancer or something like that.
Correct.
Commissioner Avalos, do you want to add anything to that?
No, I mean, I find that very interesting, and just thank you for taking the time. I mean, if it's just like the cold, I have no idea why we're wearing masks and shutting businesses down, but that's more of a political statement than anything else. But yeah, I mean, if that's how it is, and that's how it is, thank you for looking into it, and I appreciate it. There's no point in us spending more money to fight it if we're not going to get reimbursed what we spend, but just find it very interesting that that's the answer.
Yeah, some of it we made, but the bottom line is that the insurers, and I'll just tell you this so you know, but my firm, a number of my partners do a huge amount of workers' comp. That's what they do. And we do it for the employer and the carrier, generally speaking. And so right now, and I sent Chief a primer on all this, but right now, it's being very encouraged to just turn them down and see what happens. And the legislature may come back with a fix. I don't know yet.
Well, thank you, Ken. Thank you for looking into it.
And just so you know, Commissioner Avalos, as you probably know, that we represent other different industries, and they've had the same, work comp claims being submitted and now been denied. Same reason, hard to prove that they contracted at work, and even then they're not seeing it as a serious injury. So that's just the way the insurance are going about it. It's out of our control, really out of ours, and even Ken's control. It's just the insurance at its best, if you will. So their fear, one of the adjusters had mentioned, is that their fear is if they open up this floodgate, then everybody and their mother is going to try to go that route, and so it'd be too easy. So I'm with Ken on this, that maybe legislature is going to come back and change something, but until then, we'll keep submitting them, and we do our due diligence, practice the consistency, and let's see what happens then.
Thank you, Mr. Cano. Appreciate it. Yeah, I mean, it makes sense to me, right? And again, that's why the way we're reacting to it does not. If that's the what they're saying, it's not deadly and everything. But I just wanted to look into it. I had read up about it. I just wanted answers from individuals like yourselves who are in this every day and have an expertise on it. So thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate it.
Well, and I don't want to make too fine a point of this, but I mean, it's an insurance company's job to say no, and we're all in a new area. So the legislature is really going to have to come in and fix this. And I don't agree with the insurance companies. I think especially with us as firefighters, it's pretty easy to go point out exactly when and how it happened, and that's not just a routine risk of daily life. because we are actually actively going into the burning structure, if you will. But it's ridiculous in my book. But I'll just leave it at that. But just because the insurance companies don't think it's serious doesn't mean it's not.
Well, the strangest thing is that work comp doesn't see it as serious, but then OSHA comes in and they
Right.
wreak havoc on our clients. And I know you guys are not subject to OSHA, but you know, we've had a lot of OSHA, and we have certain requirements to report to OSHA when an employee does say they contracted at work and there is proof and they end up in the hospital overnight and possibly even pass. So yeah, they don't treat it as a cold or a regular flu. So it's just a lot of back and forth.
This is going to be subject to a lot of litigation later on. I mean,
Thank you.
Sorry to say something,
Chief,
this is going to be
do
subject
we,
to litigation.
yes, sir. So motion to remove or just leave it alone, Chief?
I think if you leave it alone, it just dies, correct, Ken?
Yes, correct. There's no motion.
There is no motion. Do I have a motion for item number 15? Motion dies. Item number 16, discussion and action on the policies for inventory and purchasing. Commissioners, not sure if you had a time to review it. I did supply those to the SB&G. They were reviewing them. I don't think they had anything bad to say about them. There were some minor changes that I had my purchasing staff make on his side, but I think those are pretty good. They were actually out of a college. We just changed the college name to us, just like it's always been. Why reinvent the wheel? They have a big policy on it, and I think it'll work. You have any comments, Ms. Butler?
Why are you calling on me? No, I do have comments. Let's see.
Because you said you read them, so I wanted to see if you had your feedback.
Yeah, and I actually was hoping that we could maybe take some time to go over this, and if you could possibly send it via email. There are a lot of grammatical things in here, which, you know, obviously don't speak to the content of it, but I'd like to see if we could work on some of the grammar in here and some typos. But aside from that, I had a question generally about, there's at the very beginning of the purchasing policy, it mentions purchasing activities are conducted in central purchasing and by district managers. So who are the district managers?
It could be Mariana, it could be myself, it could be Mario Silva. It's my supervisors that are out there doing expenditures they have to for their staff. So it's really by purchasing, but if I'm going to use myself as the example, sometimes Eduardo will walk in here and say, hey, they requested this. I don't know how to purchase it or how to do it, or I can't find it. And once I find it, I purchase it and tell them it's been done. Here's where you buy it. This is how you do it. And it carries on from that.
Okay, I'm wondering if we should maybe define district managers a little bit more clearly, so that it stipulates like the roles that are actually in charge of this and have this purchasing authority. And then separately, it mentions further down, it says department end users are not authorized to sign contracts. Only those individuals given such authority may do so. And it mentions authorized individuals more further down. And so same thing as with district managers. So how are we defining authorized individuals? Are the authorized individuals the district managers, or are they additional people?
No, it'd be us to come in, like everything that's getting signed here that has to do with us getting let's say a rental machine that requires, like even my maintenance, he'll bring it to me since I'm the guy in charge. I sign off on it if it's legitimate, and then he goes on about his duties. That way it falls on me to answer to you all, and I'm the only one that signs off on those. If it's like a big purchase, property, anything like that, anything big, it comes to the board. Like when we go purchase the vehicles, I send a purchase order for all this fleet that we just bought, and it's signed by me, but it was authorized by you all to make the purchase. When the vehicles come in, again, the registration is signed by me in behalf of the district to make it registered and the purchase being done. So it depends on the levels, but we can go over it on the side if you'd like to postpone it until next month. And then I would like to have 2 board members meet with me via Teams and go over it. That way we get a little bit more input. Anybody want to jump on this grenade?
I'll volunteer.
So I got Commissioner either Diaz or Santana, whichever one of you. We can only have 2.
So it's up to you, Mike. I don't mind doing it.
Go for it, Mr. Santana, then. Okay, go for it.
Yeah, I just think, to my other questions, and this goes for the inventory policy as well, just some consistency in the language to make sure that it's very clear who we're talking about and what those permissions are for each, people, each group of people we're talking about. Will be helpful. But yeah, we can have a separate meeting just to go over these. I think that's a good idea. And then also, I just wanted to note that you added the example of the stainless steel grill costing $4,000, and I thought that was funny.
That was not me. That was my purchasing agent.
All right, just to stick it to me and Commissioner Avalos one more time.
That was not me. That was. I told him to give me examples. I let him do his thing.
That's one of the biggest. That's a reoccurring nightmare, Commissioner Butler, that I have. Every time I log on to these meetings, I get this pain in my stomach, and it's that grill. And when we were at Socorro the other day, if not for Thanksgiving and the joy of the holidays, I would have passed out of just sheer aneurysm and frustration. So
I'm gonna have to have a talk with Eddie because.
Yeah, it says IE stainless steel grill costing $4,000. So,
hey, Chief.
Yes, sir.
I'll stand in as an alternate if Mr. Santana or Ms. Butler can't make it.
So, the next. Hold on.
January 19th, Chief, I believe.
Yeah. January 19th would be the next meeting, which you all meet via Teams on the 5th, 6th, 7th, or 8th.
Yeah, that's fine.
I'll send you a Teams request meeting, and then we can post it on the monitor here so we can make changes. Okay.
Can you send these to me in Word, Chief, both policies, so that I can go through them? Thank you.
Item number 16, discussion and action on the policies for inventory and purchasing. There's
Motion to postpone?
I think if there's no motion, it just dies till next meeting.
We're not bringing it back next month?
I can put it on the next agenda, but we can let it die right now until we make sure we have it clear. You want to withdraw your motion?
Yes. Withdraw my motion, please.
No motion, item dies. Item number 17, discussion and action on the purchase of all emergency equipment for the new fleet. Commissioners, this is a budgeted item. I'd like permission to purchase all the necessary equipment, extendo beds, camper shells, lights, sirens from our local vendors. I did submit the beginning for the lights. There might be some couple of changes there depending on the fleet. We're running into an issue where we're receiving 2021 fleet. However, we're not sure which front end is coming on that fleet. So we might have to make a couple of changes, but it will all be under a state contract. So there should be no issue with that. And I will have purchasing review it all. And of course, I'm the one that has to review what equipment's going on all vehicles. So where they all match. Yes. the vendor should be Alamo Auto Supply or one of the other vendors here locally under a state contract or competitive purchasing in accordance to the district policies.
So what do we need to do, Chief?
Is there a motion to allow us to continue the purchase of the equipment for the new fleet?
Oh, motion to approve the purchases.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Barnes. Or please. Commissioner Diaz,
Aye.
Commissioner Butler,
Aye.
Commissioner Santana,
Aye.
Commissioner Barnes,
Aye.
Commissioner Avalos.
Aye.
Motion carries. Item number 18, discussion and discuss and approve the next meeting to take place on, I believe you said the 19th.
Yes.
Right.
Are you all okay with the 19th?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
January 19th, 2021. Commissioners, before we end this meeting, just so you know, we received notification that the safety conference was canceled in Dallas, so there will be no conference. However, I want to keep you aware, there is, and I saw it on the Commissioners Court meeting Monday, yesterday, that there is apparently a couple of laws submitted by a couple of senators that might prohibit us from attending a conference from an organization that lobbies on behalf of a political subdivision. So I know the county is going to take a great interest in that because that's also for them. So I will look to see if that's going to prevent us from us attending because it also states that we will not be able to pay our fees to that organization because they lobby on behalf of the governmental entities. So those are things to watch out for this legislative session that's going to start. All right. They said that last year it nearly passed, so we'll see how it goes this year. All right.
Wow.
Do I have a motion for January 19, 2021?
Motion.
Make motion.
Diaz made a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Commissioner Diaz,
Aye.
Commissioner Butler,
Aye.
Commissioner Santana,
Aye.
Commissioner Barnes,
Aye.
and Commissioner Avalos.
Aye.
Adjournment at 8:03 p.m. Thank you.
Hey, everybody.
Thank
Have
you,
a
guys.
great holiday.
Happy
Happy
holidays,
Merry
everybody.
Christmas, everyone.
Good.
Christmas, Happy New Year.
care.
See y'all next year.
See
Happy
you.
holidays. Bye.
Stay safe.
Stay
Have a
safe.
good one.
Bye.
Bye, Wally.
Chief, I'll call you in the morning.
All right, sounds good.